If you want to join us live, the link will be put into the comments area of this live streaming. And today we are joined with a wonderful panel. Firstly, we've got Sharon Francisco. Hi, Sharon, and welcome back. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Katrina. It's good to be here, as always.
Yeah, lovely. And Helen Constant is also going to be helping us out with our conversation around money and that you are not a bank is the title of this session, and it is all around a mindset around money and how we deal with money, the guilt that comes in. So we're going to talk about a lot of different areas around the money mindset. But Sharon, you're welcome to pop your video back up, and anybody, sorry, has Sharon Law. she was on before and she's ran away. She gets shy. So you're welcome to have it up or not if you like, whatever you like. And for those others on the call today to also share your video so we can see your lovely smiley faces. And Sam is joining us as well. So Sam was going to give some comments around money as well as she joins us, which is awesome. Good. So this particular topic was brought about by a blog that I was reading from Deb the other day around that you are not a bank. And it's all around that premise of your clients pay everybody else. They pay their staff, they pay their contractors, their expenses. We know that, often bookkeepers hardly pay themselves because they're waiting for the money to come in and just, understand that the leftovers is what a bookkeeper gets. So we want to, break through that myth and the fact that we do not have to allow clients not to pay us. So we don't have to allow clients to say, oh, when I get my next payments to come in, or when I've done this job and finished this job, or it's okay, client, I know you're struggling at the moment, you can pay me 6 months later. And like when I've done your job, when I invoice you at the end of the job, that's when you can pay me. So it's all that mentality around it's okay. We don't need to be paid. We can, put it off because we're hurting with you. We don't want you to be struggling. We don't want to put more pressure on you. So it's okay. We'll get paid when you've got money. So can anybody relate to that is on the call at the moment? If you either want to jump off mute or pop it into the chat and the comments in the group as well. Who can relate to that? Just say, I can.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Sam Davis says.
Yeah, it's very common. It's something that we hear from bookkeepers that we're just put on the back burner for money. So what Debbie Roberts, the co-founder of Pure Bookkeeping, is always quoted when she's mentoring in this space is that you are not a bank. And she often says you are not their mother as well. So don't be a bank to allow them to just keep drawing money and resources from. So, bookkeepers continually do the work and we pay our own bookkeepers and we pay our costs that we have to pay. But why should we wait to then get money when we're out of pocket? And then when you get to a debt that becomes 5,000, 8,000, 10,000, what happens then? You've paid out $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 for your wages, and you've got a $10,000 debt, of which then you've got to fight really hard to get back and recover. And often they will go out of business, or they will give you $200 a month. So this is what we want to address today. So, Helen, have you had examples around this in your bookkeeping business, and perhaps how you might have changed it around?
Yeah, I was probably a little bit harsh with clients. I guess my mentality came from the fact that after I had children and I went back out on site, I had that in my head. I wasn't, this client had to be worth me leaving my kids for a start. And in that initial meeting, it was also, I get paid when I did invoice hourly and weekly. I was invoicing clients. I stressed to them, I get paid every week like your staff. You don't pay, I don't show up the following week. Because I thought the two things, I needed to have that client worthwhile to leave home for a start, to, what I was missing out on my kids for that day, whichever, and I wanted to be paid for it. So I stressed that right from the start. And sometimes, clients, for different reasons, I would say, okay, leave me for another week, that's fine. But it would never go beyond the 14 days. I was really strict on that from the very start. I guess when I moved to fixed pricing and direct debit, it was more about, it was to save me that invoicing time. It wasn't really a debt issue I had. I never really had bad debtors because I controlled it from the start. It was one of the things I put my foot down on. And I guess it comes back to people are not comfortable talking about money, and when it's your money, you're paying your client's bills every week, and your bill's sitting there on the list, and you're like, well, hey, you're going to pay me too. That's number one. And that's awkward for some people to be upfront about. So
yeah. And that's also even if you are paying their bills, you will put yours last. And you
tend to
others.
not want to do that. You want to be paid, but it's that, everyone's funny about talking money and asking for money. But because I stressed it at my initial meeting, sometimes, a client will say, oh, let's leave bills until, if I was there twice a week, until, later in the week or next week. And I'd say, that's all good, but you have to pay me if you want me to come back. I'd just be upfront about it. I don't know. I just got over that initial, fear from the start. I just didn't want that. And look, that's only from trial and error, and I guess from experience. I just didn't want that to be one of my issues with going out and working.
Yeah. Yep. And Sharon, can you talk to this feeling? You're coaching bookkeepers, so you understand, where they're coming from. So, and you being the mindset business guru, love to hear your thoughts on these feelings that we're having about, not paying ourselves.
What I loved about what Helen just said was, and this is a really good thing I reckon everyone can sort of emulate, is I thought it was lovely, Helen. I don't know if you even noticed that you took the heat off yourself. You made that around your kids, the time you had with your kids. So your leverage, your push with that was, hey, if I'm going to be away from my children, that I deserve to be paid for this. So it's not about you, your value or whatever, which is, obviously that's really important, but you sort of put that on your relationship and your time with your children. And I reckon if your kids are a really big push for you, that's a good thing to have in your head of when you're talking to your clients. But definitely, I love that movie. There's a movie called The Perks of a Wallflower. It's a really cool teenagery sort of a movie. And one of the lines in the movie was, we accept the love we think we deserve, which I think is just a beautiful line in itself. But I reckon you can insert a different word into where love is, or we accept the terms we think we deserve. So it's all about our value, right? When we're talking to people, I think the best time to talk about that with clients is right at the beginning. And I definitely, when I was building a bookkeeping business with my sister-in-law, whenever I signed somebody up, it was that discussion was right up the front. And I think, Helen, you've just hit it on the nail on the head around just valuing yourself enough to make sure that you frame up those conversations, as awkward as they may be to begin with. But you know what, I just can't, I can't sort of hold you or carry you And look, you know, we're good friends, it's all good, but you know, if you can't pay, we'll just stop. And this is the conversation I have. We'll just stop work immediately. I'll do you the courtesy of a phone call just to check in. Maybe you didn't transfer the money across in time or whatever. But if for some reason you're having a tricky time, I'd like to be able to talk with you about how we can help you with that tricky time. If there's a conversation that I can have, and that then, you know, goes into kind of a bit of an advisory thing as well. But if you can't pay, we'll just have to stop the work, because we can't sort of allow our girls to keep working if you can't pay us. The minute you put that money in the bank account, we're off again and we're fine. So that conversation can be quite a friendly one. It doesn't have to be harsh, but it's just right up the front. And it's framing it like, I love this line as well, you educate people on how to treat you. And if you're educating them right at the beginning, that you generally don't have too much of a trouble. I think also what marries beautifully with this conversation is when we look at our client base, and I know Sam and Helen will know about this because they're working with me, but when we're looking at our client base and we segment it into A, B, C and D class clients, and if we're working with those A's and B clients, it's usually a lot easier to make sure that we frame that and we get our money through in time. It's usually the naughty C's and D's that are a little bit tardy with money sometimes. That's the reason they are C's and D's, and it's a bit tricky to find out that to begin with, isn't it? But I know you sort of work really closely with your program too, Katrina, with segmenting the database. Have you found that that makes a difference with payments as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think it highlights those clients that need additional attention to be built up to become a B or an A client. And when you do that and you analyse it and you look at the D clients that don't pay you, because traditionally that is one of the scores, they're not paying you and they're not providing you the information on time, that you will know whether it's a lost cause where you just need to find a replacement of those clients and drop them off because they are draining you and you're not getting paid. Or educating them. And I love the way that you do it in such, you frame it in such a nice, friendly way, because you want to support them. You want to be there as a support. So it's talking to them, opening that communication up and say, how can we help? Can we stop doing the bookkeeping for a while until you catch up with, the money and get paid up, and then put a plan into place of how they can pay coming into the future, or what perhaps they could do as part of the bookkeeping or part of the service, so that you are, supporting them but not doing all of the work. And sometimes, clients, when they're in this tricky situation, especially over COVID, when, the money isn't coming in and they've got less work to do, then, I know bookkeepers did actually drop off from doing the bookkeeping and supported others doing the bookkeeping just while they're in this area of not demise, but, lower activity. So the business owner can do some of the bookkeeping activity, and then you will pick it back up, but you have always been there as a support. So, reducing that fee for those instances when they are in that situation, because I think it's easier conversation to reduce that fee and reduce that service than it is to recover back the $10,000 and recover from the resentment that they're feeling as well. Because, bookkeepers quickly get resentful when, there's a $6,000, $10,000 debt owed. To recover back from that, it's really, really difficult. So we don't want to get to that situation right from the start.
I remember when I was 22, we had a furniture and interior design store I've talked about before, Tanya Francisco and I. And I think this is where I really learnt how people behave around money. And we used to have back then, was because it was in a little small country town, we used to have accounts, and obviously people had to pay a certain amount on their account. They were big, like lounges that were like $5,000 and $6,000. They were massive. Some of the accounts were big. And I remember sometimes people coming in, oh, sorry, Sharon, I can't, pay my account this month. I go, oh, it's all good. No worries. If you're doing it hard, that's okay. And then the good thing about a small country town, and there's bad things as well, but the good thing is you see everyone out and about because you know everyone in a small country town. And then you'd see them out in other shops or out at the golfie buying all this stuff. It's like, how does that work? Like, you couldn't come and pay me, and then you're out. Like, really? And so quickly I learned, like, when they came in and said, oh, no, we haven't got any money. It's like, well, and I would never say, obviously, but it's like, oh, well, and then you'd have a bit more stronger conversation because you knew they went off and bought, the pretty little lamp in the shop down the road. And it just, to me, it shows where they put you on that order, again, is back when you're having those framing up conversations at the beginning of, like, how much, we educate people on what value we have and how important it is to make sure you honour those payments. So there's money there somewhere, and just wherever you are on that hierarchical ladder of who gets paid, is you've got to make sure you're at the top of that ladder, I think.
Yeah, and it's often that bookkeepers, well, we see the expenses going through the bills, going through the accounts, and people are going on holidays, and we know our clients are going on holidays, but they still can't pay your bills. So it's exactly that. It's probably toughening up and having that tough conversation with the client to make sure that we are in line before they do go on their European holiday. Because you are entitled to it. It's just respect, isn't it? It's respect for ourselves, and having, framing it up right from the start of our engagement with a client, that they do respect what we do and respect that they need to pay us in our, time frame. So it's really important to, have that respect for ourselves, and you were saying, and one of the comments that you made is, educating people right up front, right up from the get-go, from the engagement letter, of how you pay your bills or how you behave. There was, some mentality around that as well.
Yeah, and I love it there. The little saying that I've only just learned about, it's really cool. How we do anything is how we do everything. So what that means, it's a bit of a head one, that one, but what that means is, and I love, like, Helen's approach around money. I knew as soon as we started talking about money, we just both, like, chatted backwards and forwards about, we've got a really similar, haven't we? You and I got a really similar approach to money. Like, I would, every week I sit down, I handwrite out all my, like, everything that's in my bank account, I cross-reference it all. I'm, like, on the dollar with my budget every month. I know exactly where my money is all the time. And I reckon that how we do anything is how we do everything, is that's associated with that, isn't it, Helen? I reckon, because if you're on it with your own money, if you value what, every cent that goes out the door, and you're measuring everything the way you are with your money, is how you're going to treat people with your money, like how you're going to have those conversations. It's going to be a lot tighter, isn't it? Whereas if you're loose with your budget, you're loose with, like, that sort of stuff, it's easier to be loose with your clients, and so you can see that really quickly. So the behavior that you have around money yourself is really important, I think, to make sure that if you're not following I follow the Barefoot Investor. I think that's the probably pretty simple way. It's kind of like the personal version of Profit First, isn't it, really? But it's I think it's important to have all your ducks in a row personally, which can then go across to your business. Would you say that, Helen?
Yeah, I think my approach to money, I'm not, I think it's part of my goal. That's the thing too. So bookkeeping, I do love bookkeeping, but I am doing it for the money. I'm going to be upfront and say I'm not doing it for the passion, because if I was doing something for a passion, I'd be writing books, because I know there's, even after, you finish a 120,000 words novel, whatever you're going to get paid is nowhere near the amount of time you've put in. But bookkeeping, my goal involves money, because my goal is to buy an office. So I need money to do that. So, you know, breaking it down to my 90-day goal or my monthly goal, I need to pass a certain budget every month in order to put money aside. So, you know, at the end of it, I want something from this business. It may not be, you know, I'll be able to sell it. Who knows? But at least I could walk away and say, well, I had this nest egg built up. And so my approach has always been, if that client doesn't pay, then it's one step back from that goal that I need to reach. You know, I think bookkeeping, I worked from home for how long? So our costs were so minimal, there was no reason not to put that little bit aside. And I know sometimes it's hard once bath time comes around and you've got those extra things to pay out every quarter, but I don't know, I think it's just in my mentality. Sharon, we spoke the other day about the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. And I remember from that, you know, every dollar that this person earned, he put 10 cents away. And I think being a family background where, you know, my parents had cafes, so lots of cash came through, but it wasn't, you know, if you spent every bit of it, there's nothing to show for it in the end. So it's, I guess, in my mentality to always put that, you know, bit of money aside. So, and as I said, it's part of my business goals. And if it's, you know, a matter of now we're in an office, you know, it's a difference. Do I get to buy $70 chairs, or do I get to buy $600 ergonomic chairs that the girl's going to sit in all day, and it's going to be beneficial and they'll want to be in this space. So I think that, you know, having that extra cash flow just helps. It gives you that bit of freedom, you know, once you're ready to sort of, you know, have a coach, have other people, you know, outsource other back end office things that for me are just too time consuming. So, you know, but it's just that I think it just boils down to respect for yourself. Clients have to respect the fact that you're giving them a service. You can't take it back. It's not a product that we can say, well, you didn't pay. You know, I'm taking my ownership back. We've done the work. You can't undo their work. You can't seize their file because they didn't pay. You know, I've heard terrible stories, people doing that, but I just, you know, and I've never had a client not pay. I've never not turned up the next week, even if they, you know, didn't happen to pay, they'll pay that day. So it hasn't, I don't think it was a bad decision, but it's, you know, I find it easier with people I don't know to be upfront with money from the start. With a client, you've already got an existing client who you know really well, you become a little bit familiar. It's just harder to sit down and have that money talk, you know, and in your own business, being strict with your cash flow or collecting debtors, however you operate, you're doing that for your client every week. You're watching, you know, as you said, Sharon, you're balancing to the cent. You know, we're doing that for our clients. So why wouldn't you do that in your own business and carry that forward to the client? So, you know, I guess it's, yeah, that's just how I've always approached it. So.
And again, sorry, Katrina.
Go on, Sharon.
Well, just again, I noticed that, like, because I know, you know, the feeling is with all of us, like, of course we want to get paid what we've worked for. But again, I come back to that, what you've raised, Helen, is like your motivation was your office. So I need to make sure that I've got enough money for the office and the chairs. So it's always coming back for you for like what you're wanting to achieve, which is really cool. So you've got that as a leverage with it. The other thing, oh, sorry, Katrina, I cut you off.
No, I was going to say a very similar thing, actually. It's being really clear on what you want, really clear on your vision. And if it is to build a strong business and give good resources to your staff and to put, you know, buying that office, having the money there to do that, it's not coming from a selfish area of like, oh, can I get paid, please? It is, I'm running a business. I'm charging towards building buying an office, you know, building this respectful professional, you know, practice. So it takes the emotion out of it. It becomes a rational conversation, and it gives you more confidence because you know exactly what you want, and you don't give them that option of saying, oh, but I'll pay you in 3 weeks' time. You don't have that, oh, you know, you can pay me when you need, when you've got money. It's you coming really strong with exactly what your terms are, and your respect for money, your understanding of money, your relationship with money is like, I do the work, I get paid. I build a practice to, and I buy my office. So it's just that really clear thought, or, you know, purpose of moving forward. It's not, you know, I'll get the money at the end of the, you know, I'll just get whatever's left over in the business. It's knowing exactly what you deserve to get, and going out there and asking for it confidently.
Mm.
I think that's what you're bringing to it.
You know, the other thing I've noticed over the years of talking with bookkeepers is kind of getting money, like chasing money for bills you've already sent out or invoices you've already sent out is one thing. But I've noticed with a lot of my conversations, I don't know if anyone else has heard or doing this, but invoices that aren't even being done to send out, like they're not sending them out. And I'm like, that's the most fun time of the month, I reckon. Like, you're sending your invoices out.
Oh, I loathe that, Sharon. Sorry, this is why I moved everything. Oh, I automated it all. I would sit down on a Saturday morning to do all my business things, and the invoicing, I just dreaded it. Even though it was quite automated within Xero, we did, you know, the girls did their times in projects, attached it to the job and the client, and, you know, I could raise the wages, I could raise the client invoice, but I thought, what a waste of 2 hours. And then when I looked into Practice Protect, and, you know, I'm on their premium plan, because I thought whatever it costs, and obviously with pure bookkeeping, we get a discount. Say it's $300 a month, even with the debit fees or credit card fees. I couldn't pay a girl that amount of money a month to take care of 8 hours of invoicing a week. A month, sorry. So I just thought that is cheap labor to pay someone for a day's work. And that's chasing the debtors up. I mean, we're chasing debtors for our clients. I don't want to be coming home and chasing them for myself. It was just one of the things I thought I could eradicate all that I don't like. Invoicing was not fun. You sat down and raised all the invoices, and then you looked at what was owing and thought, oh gosh, that's a lot of money outstanding.
Yeah.
When am I going to get that? You know, that to me was, I don't know, it was something I knew I could take hold of, control, and just moved everyone to that platform. And mind you, we still have some clients who are billed hourly. They also happen to be clients that we couldn't pass, you know, email the invoice quick enough, and it's already in our account. And it's only because of the nature of their business that it's just impossible to pick a fixed fee at this stage. So, but I'm comfortable with those clients, and I actually invoice them monthly. So I'm not concerned with the week by week. I certainly don't. I told them up front, I'll bill you hourly, that's fine, until we find our happy medium, but I won't be billing you weekly. You know, it has to be monthly. And they're like, as long as you're okay. And I actually had 2 clients say, would you like money in advance to cover that monthly gap? And I'm like, no, I don't need that, you know, because I have the cash flow. I don't need, you know, the cash is the last thing, and checking my account, it's the last thing I have to worry about, because Practice Protect takes care of it all. You know, we do wages monthly, we pay our bills monthly, it's all up to date. So I don't have to worry, you know, and whatever invoices come through the month are all direct debit on a credit card. I just took that whole, you know, job away from myself, because I don't want to be, you know, getting all the, you know, everyone knows we get subscription fees and all this, and most of it is direct debit. So I just found it easier to do it all on the credit card, and then I sit down at the end of the month, pay the card, bang, it's all done. You know, so I mean that worked for me. So it was just one job I needed to deal with, because I don't like invoicing at all.
Yeah,
Not
and
something I enjoy. I'm not sure if anyone else does.
Just an adjustment on that. That's Practice Ignition that you are using.
Sorry,
not
Practice
Practice
Ignition. Oh, there's so many of them. I always
Yeah.
confuse those two because of their name, but no, it's practice ignition. But
Ignition.
that has been probably the best investment or work process that we've implemented. It's been great.
Mm.
So
I think,
Yeah.
sorry, Katrina.
You go.
From hearing you speak, Helen, it sounds like you don't have an issue with the actual head stuff for sending out the invoices. And I was thinking what you're doing with practice ignition. Is actually, even if you're like, for people that do, because the people I've spoken to, it's raising the invoices and the hours they've done and the head stuff around, oh, that should have been less, and I shouldn't, less time. I shouldn't be doing that amount of hours for this invoice. Do I send it out for this or don't I send it out for that? And I think that's what's stopping them from actually sending the invoice out. But using practice ignition actually helps you get over that head stuff as well. Because if you're handing that off to somebody else, like, okay, yep, the hours then, and they're sending it out. Apparently, is that how it works? They send it out.
Yeah.
So
they send it out, Sharon, and so when a client signs the initial engagement, they have to put in payment details. So once they sign that engagement, the payment comes out because we're paid in advance of doing the work, not in arrears. And then they create the invoice in Xero for me, send it to the client. The client, after they put their payment details in, receives the payment receipt. In my Xero file, they reconcile that payment against that invoice once the funds hit the account because it's delayed how many days. And it's all done. So, I don't have to look at any of that at all. That's all, like I might log on and my Xero will say, oh, there's X amount outstanding because the invoices have been raised, but there'll be that time lapse of when the money hits my account. But it's not something I have to concern myself with. But yeah, it's all automated and I haven't had any issues with it. And I guess if I did, I'd say, oh, I have to have a look at the third party that I do my invoicing, who do my invoicing. It takes it off you being that one sending it out. But generally, the client has already agreed to your payment terms. So there's no issue there with what you're charging.
Yeah.
And I know for myself too, I hated invoicing, and it would be the last thing I would do when you come to the end of the month and I'd put it off and it might be 2 months later. And I know I've had conversations with bookkeepers that are exactly the same situation. They just keep putting it off until you get to a point where, I need some money. I need some money needs to come in. Even if you might not have staff or you're just, toppling away with, some extra money in the bank. But once you get to a point, oh, holy shit, I need to invoice. So then you go and do this big bounce of invoicing and like it's dozens and it's thousands of dollars. And that's when, the resentment and the guilt and the like, oh my God, I can't invoice them 2 months of work. So it's, and even if you're doing it on a regular basis, it's the guilt of, can I really charge them that amount? Like it's turned up to be $1,500, but it's, a lot of work and we're not looking at the hourly rate. We're looking at like, oh, are they going to pay me that? Are they now going to say they, are cancelling our service because we're too expensive? So it's that guilt conversation we have with ourselves. So do you have some responses to that, Sharon, around that guilt?
I think what practice ignition sounds like the go. That's like a big workaround. Like if there's I reckon
that's a practical solution. Yeah,
because if that I'm not sort of, I'm sure there's a bunch of different ways out there that you can do it, but it sounds like to me for the cost, even though it sounds like it's an investment to do it, but then what's the cost? What's the real cost if you're not putting the invoices out and it's screwing with your head and you're reducing the hours and going, oh, maybe I'll take off 5 hours or whatever. I think I think having something practical like that is a fantastic option. Although I will say, I reckon, that whole thing of like how we do anything is how we do everything. I think if you can really work a way for you to embrace if you are like, having trouble around the whole gathering money thing or sending out invoices or whatever, this is a really good way to help in your whole life, like asking for things that you want, not just in business. Like this can really grow you as a person in a whole bunch of different areas. And also the example you set for your team, the example you set for your partner, your children, everything. So the more brave you get around asking for the things that you want and deserve, I mean, that goes across every area of your life, and then, opens opportunities for a whole bunch of different things like business opportunities and whatever. So I think embracing it and not necessarily shying away from it is a really valuable thing to do in your own personal growth.
Mm. And how do we start doing that? Is it just having conversations to, with our clients, just putting ourselves out there and just starting and just, taking on those feels and working through that and keep pushing through?
I reckon it's all just like little baby steps. I've got a client that's not here today, and what we're doing is like we've got a goal of what she wants to achieve, and the vocabulary, as we all do, we want to go back into that, like, that whole worth thing of, am I worth 700,000 in my business, or can I grow a team, or and a lot of the conversations in a coaching session is around, like, those sort of blocks that come up. And so we're experimenting with the vocabulary. And so what comes out of our mouth on those calls is around, I'm there, I'm at 700,000 turnover, I've got a team, and the conversation is all around that. We're there already. She's there already. And that's, it's pretty powerful. It made me cry the first time. She said, well, now I'm on the way and I'm at 300,000. I'm like, what is she saying? It's like, yeah, like it really sounds like when you start verbalizing that sort of stuff, it makes you own it more, and you're in the shoes of that, which is, I think it's kind of a neat way to do it, because it's like life's a mirror. Everything that we say out comes back to us. So I think it's important to make sure your vocabulary is positive around that. But that's a good first start, just your vocabulary, I think, and taking small baby steps. It doesn't have to be a big step, to begin with.
Yeah, no, that's a great example of what bookkeepers can do on a practical level, but with their mindset. So thanks for that. On a practical level, as Helen had said, around, practice ignition, that's certainly, one option to do. I know for myself, to avoid putting off my invoices month after month, I would make myself do 2 or 3 hours a week. And I might not invoice all of my clients, but I would invoice whichever jobs that I had finished during that week, and I'd invoice them out. So there might only be 3 or 4 clients. So it wasn't as painful, and it was because it didn't take so long. And because, sometimes you could do your invoicing and it takes a half a day or a day to go through it all, which is crazy. We need to find solutions to make that a lot easier. But back in the day when I was working, doing it, it was like weekly. I would close off each job, the jobs that were closed off, that's the ones I'd invoice. And then as the cash flow was coming in and I wasn't having that pain and that, that guilt and that, the scared, the panic of, doing my invoices in one big bulk, I was getting them down more regularly, and then I would stretch it out to fortnightly. And then I would put on a direct debit situation. So then you need to turn a lot of your invoices away from hourly as much as you can into that fixed fee. So practice ignition wasn't around in my day. I sound so old.
Not either.
So, something like practice ignition, fix your fees. So, it doesn't have to be perfect. And we will do some of these power hours around pricing and packaging and fixed fees and all that stuff to help you get through that. But, the sooner the better. Like for me, I was on hourly bookkeeping, but I'd start to fix my BAS services and my year-end services, and, certain services had a fixed amount to them. So it was a lot easier to do there. And then when I knew my clients were on a monthly, the monthly invoice was very similar every month. then I would turn that into like a fixed fee. It was $700 a month, give or take $50 to $100. I would just keep invoicing the same amount each month. So again, it took away that the guilt. Is it perfect? Are they going to pay it? Have I charged too much or whatever? Just to make it simple, and then put them onto a direct debit or a situation like IntegraPay, where they, IntegraPay just take the money out of the bank. So it's just finding those solutions for yourself to make it a lot easier. Even some bookkeepers get their staff to do it. So they've educated, this is how I systemize my invoicing, somebody else to do it, and I don't have to think about it. It's just that cringe or that guilt that we carry to do that. So, putting it away until we can resolve our own mindset around money.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that because you and I have been talking. We're going to do a webinar in about a month's time. We've been talking about LPAs, low payoff activities, and HPAs, high payoff activities. And I was just thinking when you were talking then, it would be considered as a LPA, right? A low payoff activity that you can
It could be, if you can systemize it and bring it into, how a bookkeeper can, or how another staff member could do it, definitely.
Yeah, because then that solves a whole bunch of problems, because if you can pay somebody, $30 an hour to do it, and then that frees up that, like, how many hours did you say you were doing it? Like 8 hours a day, 8 hours a month or something?
I do like 3 or 4 hours a week.
So with that little exercise we're doing, like, how many thousands of dollars would that be a year?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it would be a really, and also, like, it does it from a practical sense because it frees up 8 hours a month for you to go on high payoff activities at $120 an hour or whatever. But it also takes care of the head stuff. So again, it's the practical side, it's the head stuff of doing that. So you've just leveraged that to somebody else.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue I think bookkeepers have, is the head stuff, is getting in and doing it, finding the time as well. Like, we value the time that we spend on our client's business before we value the time we spend on our own business, and that has to change. We have to treat our own business as our most important client. And I heard recently, I think it was in the Pure Bookkeeping community, that somebody had just done their BAS, and it was like 2 days into BAS on. So they'd done their own BAS. So that's again, with that phrase that you brought up, Sharon, the
how we do anything, how we do everything.
Yeah. So looking after yourself. And
so she probably wouldn't have anyone that's late for her BAS, perhaps, because she's right on it. So she'd be right on with her clients.
Yeah, and it would follow through for all of her business. She would be looking out for her business because everything's up to date. Her invoicing, her payments, all of that flow through.
Is that Helen? That's you.
I do that, yes. I do that. My BAS is done on the first of the following month here. My BAS, my husband's, and whatever companies I handle for his behalf and his business partner. Yeah, our super is done the next day after wages. PAYG's paid. Yeah, I'm anal about that. I just don't want the debt that I see every day with clients. Not all our clients, some clients, I don't want that hassle. So I always get ours out of the way first. I'm always paranoid as a BAS agent, we can't have, tax debt. We can't be late lodging taxes. So that's always in the, forefront of my mind. Everything's got to be on time. Yeah, I don't know. It's just easy to get it out of the way. You control your own books. You know all the transactions. You're not waiting for clients to send bank statements or paperwork. So why not just do it straight away and get it done?
Yeah. Do you know what we should be doing is accumulating all the successful habits of successful bookkeepers and sharing those habits. It's just like the 7 habits of a highly effective people.
Yeah.
It's, whatever the habits are, emulate what others are doing, which will flow through to you building that stronger business and that successful business.
Can I just butt in?
Yes,
Hi, from Darwin. in the tropical heat. That's why I'm not showing you my video, because I look a mess right now. But just speaking of habits is and you're talking about doing the couple of hours, I've started doing because between 5 and 7 a.m. is like my quiet time, and that's kind of the time that I've now worked out is that's when I work on my business. So, and I like Monday mornings is when I do all my kind of business stuff. I go through the bills and stuff like that. But the bookkeeping side of it, I get one of my bookkeepers to do. So we've now worked out that if she does it on a Friday when we're in the office together, so she can make sure I've pulled all the receipts out of my bag and I've got everything is forwarded on, and then she sends me through all the same thing as we do for any other client, my age payables, my age receivables, and my uncoded line, so I can go through, check where I'm at. So on a Monday morning, I'm pretty clear on what I have to do to keep moving forward, who I need to chase up and stuff. So that, speaking of habits, is that's the one that I've tried to introduce into my own practice at the moment. And it is taking my mind off things, because instead of going, oh, halfway through the week, oh my God, I haven't done something, I'm going, no, that's okay. I'll have a look at that on Monday and deal with it then.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So it's creating that system as well as is it David Allen? It talks about creating a system to get it out of your head. So everything is systemized. So if you know that this is going to be taken care of at a certain time and day, then you don't need to worry about it again. It's totally out of your head. So they're great examples. Thanks for sharing, Sam. And I noticed that you'd put some comments in as well, that you had always felt selfish, that you'd pay your bills above other suppliers, and that you had a client that used to run off to get her hair and nails and tans done weekly but couldn't pay yourself. So have you dealt with those things, Sam?
Well, you did see that I used to have a client. Yes, and I did. She's well and truly gone and not missed at all. She's one of those ones that you struggled with from day dot. But I actually started with the bookkeeping with her husband, and I loved her husband. He was really cruisy and he would take on board all my advice, but she was just a struggle from the beginning. So no dramas at all when she kind of went, yeah, no. She moved over to the accountant. I went, good, see you later. But and that was a while back. But yeah, I mean, it has taken a lot of years for me to sort of go, I'm going to stop. I do need to get paid as well, because if I don't get paid, then nobody else gets paid either. So, and IntegraPay, like you sent me the link to IntegraPay. I think when we spoke, as a sole trader, I think my receivables at that stage were up around $8,000, and I was in absolute tears that this money was owing to me, and I just could not get paid. And I think I dealt with the last of the outstanding debts the year after, I think, with through Collect More. I just got rid of whatever was left there and wrote off what was never going to come in. But IntegraPay was just magic for me. And now Practice Ignition, because it has, like the BAS agent thing and everything signed in there, and it's quite clear from the very beginning. But it's definitely been a journey, like one step at a time, with working out that. We were actually talking this morning about I have to, because I've just increased fees for clients that I've, and I took them on at a really low rate, and I've just sent out the email, and I've got to make the follow-up. So I've sent the email out to say that we're increasing the hourly rate, but I just need to make that follow-up phone call. Yes, Sharon, I did it. I did it just before I went on holidays. And like this, tomorrow will be a week later. So I figure a week for them to sort of absorb that kind of information, and then give them a follow-up call, and just go, okay, this is what it means for you, sort of thing. And if you're not happy with that rate, that's fine. I've given you a couple of months, so I'm happy to do the handover. Because and we were just discussing the money mindset, like that. It's still such a hard thing to actually talk about. for me, especially for me.
Yeah. I think there's a theme through the conversation, and I reckon that theme is habits. Everyone's been talking about different habits, and I think there's a group, you probably heard of them, Sam. There's a group called the 5 a.m. Club, and it's a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, and the stats are that if you get up at 5 o'clock and you start your day, that I'm not sure if it's that they are successful because they get up that time or it makes them successful. But anyway, there's stats to say that people that start their day at 5 a.m. and set aside the first hour to work on themselves, like Sam does for the first 2 hours, that there's a whole bunch of successful people doing that. So I reckon if you're planning your day like that and you're getting up at 5 a.m. and it all comes back to habits, and the way that we make sure that we stick with our habits is like, what we talk about, Katrina, is that default diary, to make sure that we're really on for every hour. What are we doing? And when you think about like a default diary is like putting everything in your calendar that you do and making sure you cover all the different domains of the business, like sales and marketing and HR and finance. And you've got your whole week lined out of what you want to achieve in that week. And you think, God, you must have to be so anal to do that. The answer is yes. Successfully anal. Because if you know what you're doing every hour of the day, it just makes it a lot easier. So, you've got invoicing in there for, an hour after lunch, and that's what you've got to do. And you get sick of putting them forward because you can't delete them. You've got to just put them forward. It just makes you, it jams you into a spot where you have to do it. And it's a beautiful thing. I love when you flipped your screen yesterday, Katrina, and I saw you are living proof. It was exactly as a default diary should be. It was just beautiful. So it helps because it takes the thinking away. You know what you want to achieve in the next 12 months. You bring it back to quarterly, you bring it back to monthly action. It's all in your default diary, what you have to do to achieve your goals. And that whole habitual thing is really important, I think, from this whole conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was interesting because my default diary that I teach bookkeepers never has any sales conversations in it. You showed me another default diary, which was just a business owner, and half their week was sales conversations. And I've got new client meetings and networking, but I've not actually got your sales conversations, like full on prospect conversations. So we tweaked it a little bit yesterday for our presentation in May. We've got a webinar coming up around that. So so that was a good point. It's like, we have sales conversations before we have client meetings. So so that's good. Does anyone on the call today have any questions that you would like to ask of the panelists, or anything in general that you'd like to make a comment about, or ask how people are doing certain things, or over in Facebook land? Any questions over there? Anybody want to come off mute or just pop in the chat so we can cater for any of your questions before we finish up? As I'll wait for any comments to go through. Nobody's off mute, so we'll continue on. So one of the other things I think, Sharon, we wanted to talk about was budgeting, was, going more into detail around the budgeting and the cash flow and
how important that is, yeah. And I was just saying before, when I was a franchise relationship manager for Quest Apartments, every month we would sit down and we'd put the cash flow up on the wall. We had a projector and we put it up on a wall, and there'd be benchmarks across all of the 160 franchisees. And so each of the line items in the P&L, we'd go through and we'd see where they're at every month on that cash flow, and see, obviously against their budget too, of what they were wanting to achieve each month going forward. That's a powerful exercise. If you're looking at that so closely every month, and I'm not sure if, bookkeepers need to do that every month to be on track with that, but I think it's just a really important thing to be all across your numbers. I'm sure, I don't know, Helen, do you do anything like that? Are you that sort of go through? Yes, of course she does. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I don't do it monthly, because by the end of the month, I want to reach that goal. So actually do it earlier.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can be weekly, depending on, you know, because I know I know what we're already going to get, and then there's extra projects. So I know my set amount from Practice Ignition, regular clients. There's new clients we pick up that we take on. So that's going to obviously alter that figure. There's project work, which I do a lot of, which is, it's not as much I worry about the payment, because I work my figures on accruals. I always have. I don't look at the cash side, because in that month that I've accrued wages and super and the bookkeeping fees and everything, I want to see what goes out within that month. So I will look at it sometimes weekly, sometimes, you know, fortnightly, because I want to know, I know weekly what I have to make. You know, if I don't make that weekly, you know, then I look at also, is it a 4-week month? Is it a 5-week month? How much room have I got? So, you know, there's sometimes, and I have in some instances where we've been down, that there's a project that I know won't take long to do, but it could be because it's consulting, it's a good high income earner. So I will, you know, instead of pushing it to the following Friday, I'll say, well, hey, I can do it this Friday, get that into that week, because then I know I'm on budget for that week. I might even be over budget. So that way next week I can probably have that Friday off. I don't know. Like, I have looked at that. I don't look at it to, you know, I must make it. I just look and see where I'm going. I just have a slight guide, you know, so yeah, I do look at it, because by the end of the month, I don't want to get to there and say, oh, damn, I'm down $6,000, because what, you know, it just deflates me.
Yeah.
You know, it was funny because I was actually down $500 last month, and I was doing something with a client, and she said to me, I didn't get your bill, because she's one of my monthly ones. And I said, you know, I'm sure, because I am horrendous with invoicing. And I know I did the invoicing. I said, oh, no, I certainly got it. And she goes, oh, yeah, I have it here. She goes, oh, that's odd. You dated it in April. And I went, oh, no, it's got to be dated March. You know, because it's got to be, because she wants it in her accruals and I need it in mine.
Yes.
And I went, oh, no, that was a mistake. So as soon as I put her into that 31st date, I'm like, yay, I'm way over. But it was that little bit, you know, $500, but it sort of got me down. It's a strange thing, but it was such a bonus. And yeah, I don't know, it gave me that bit of buzz that I'm on track, you know, because end of year's coming up and I've got that goal. I want to meet that, you know, that goal that we had, that I set last year for the annual, you know, the financial year. So I don't know, it's the little things we get excited about.
Yeah. It keeps you focused. I used to do exactly the same thing, have a monthly target, and I would look at it before the month. So mid-month or the 3rd week of the month, to make sure that I was on target, because I'd do exactly the same. I'd finish work or pull invoices in to achieve that month. And okay, you're saying that, okay, now I don't have the invoices for the next month, but that means you've got to push harder for the next month and achieve that month as well. So it's just keeping you accountable and focused on your end goal, which is, you know, if your outcome was 150,000 or 250,000 for the year, you have to achieve it, and you're not going to catch up every month that you were down. And you do feel it, you do get a little bit bummed that you're, you know, didn't quite make it, or I'm not making it yet. So you just push that little bit harder just to make it happen. So it does help. It's another one of these successful habits.
Yeah.
So we've got to create a book on successful habits, I tell you.
Definitely.
That's a good idea.
It makes a difference. All these little things adds up to a successful, bigger business, bigger, you know, stronger business. So yeah, I'm glad you're doing it too, Helen. And yeah, a lot of great habits, you know, coming from your business. So thank you for sharing those too. Okay, we are at the top of the hour. So was there any last comments that any of the panelists wanted to make before we head off, or any last questions anybody had?
Thanks for joining us from Darwin, Sam. How good are you? That's awesome.
Yeah, glad she got through without all the floods.
or rain.
Oh yeah, no, it's been lovely. We're off to see after lunch. It's time to see a jumping crop cruise.
Oh, how cool.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, enjoy.
Stay back from the side, Sam.
Yeah, no fingers out the sides. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Sam.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Thanks for listening in, and see you later, Sharon. Thanks for joining us, the panelists, Sharon and Helen, and Sam making some comments. Really appreciate it. And next week, we're talking about the 3 causes of procrastination. So that will be interesting as well. Always great topics, but if you've got any suggested topics, please put them into the Facebook group. If you've got any questions, pop them into the comments in the Facebook group, and we will be watching out for those. Thanks again. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye for now.
Bye. See ya.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Everyone.